Yeah.
Hi. We have one more coming. She's always.
I'm asking a hard question. Time to bring out the hard. All right, so just because it's audio, please, could you everyone just state their name for the record?
I'm Diana Bang, and I play Dr. Allison Mann.
Nina Jacobson, executive producer.
Mari-Jo Winkler, Iofreda, executive producer.
Awesome. I think I can speak for everybody in this room right now that this is an amazing show. New York Comic Con, based on a couple of news that's been coming out recently, everyone's talking about, hey, new season, this, and that. I know we're not done this season yet, but any news on where we're going with the next season yet?
I mean, Eli knows quite a lot about where we're going with the next season. They are working away. We don't know for sure if we're picked up yet, so we sure hope that we're having a next season. So, there's so much great stuff to come, obviously, especially as you move. We wanted our show to always feel grounded, and so in order to feel grounded, you have to feel the grief of half the people on the planet dying. Like, you can't just breeze past that. And yet so much of what's great in the graphic novels is about kind of the tribalization that happens after the event, once people have sort of started to make their next version of the world. But we felt for our first season we had to really address the loss and the grief, and so for us, the show does get more fun, actually, I think, especially when Dr. Mann kind of gets in there and starts to spice things up, it's so provocative, but also because we have to move past the loss and mourning, and now into these survival and rebirth and change.
So I have a question about this. So was there any worry in the beginning stages of this because of what we're going through right now about, that tone and what, the slow burn? Was there any worry about that?
Yes, of course. You know that people have so many things to watch, that it's so hard out there to get traction, and yet it just felt like, how can you possibly tell this story, especially what we're going through, and especially the grief and the mourning of so much loss? How can you not speak to it and expect anybody to identify with these characters? So I think we felt like that was the right work to do. It's also, the graphic novels are character driven at their heart. They're character pieces. That's why people love them, the people who love them. And so it felt like these characters deserved the dignity of responding in a grounded way to such a catastrophe, as opposed to a hard cut and it's 2 months later and people are just getting on with the next chapter. We felt like we had to explore the huge blow that every person who's left is experiencing.
So Diana, Eliza mentioned something about Dr. Mann's character really educating people on the role of chromosomes and talking about the science behind our concepts of gender. How did you approach that as an actress, being able to disseminate that information to the watching public? Did you feel any sense of elation or relief being able to help educate people on the lack of the binary?
I felt all of those things, I really, that scene at the end of episode 5, I did put a lot of pressure on myself, because I was like, this is so important. It really sets up the stakes of the whole show, in that scene, she's trying to sort of wake Yorick up out of his narrow view and really explain to him explain that the diversity and variety of our own biology is so vast, and so for me, in terms of how I approached it, that particular scene, I created a backstory. So there is backstory to, and so that it informs kind of like what she's saying, why she's saying. So it's not just her being a teacher, like a professor, and being like, these are the facts. There is stuff, that I thought of, that I think Eli, the showrunner, has also thought of with the writers. So that was sort of the approach that I took, so that it doesn't become didactic, and that hopefully that is conveyed to like the people who are watching and to Yorick.
From the production side, I'm really curious to know what were some major concerns in making an effort like this happen during the pandemic? What were some things that y'all considered in order to take care of your crew and your cast in this process?
Yeah. Well, the first concern was, we were about 3 weeks away from shooting when the pandemic happened, and originally we thought it was going to be 3 weeks and we'll be back to work.
Right.
And the world changed, and I think the first thing was casting. Right, we had cast that, knowing that there was such a long span of time, we offered to the cast to make a choice of whether or not to come back. So some cast members chose not to come back because of fear, long run, being away from home, maybe, committing to a character that they committed to in 2018. So that was the first order of business, was to recast, and we got incredibly lucky, I think, with this gang. And then in terms of the pandemic, it was really hard. I mean, COVID protocols, very stringent protocols, worried about the health and safety of the crew and the cast, who are the people who work without the mask. And we were able, with the support of Disney and the resources, to really put a lot of protocols in place. And also in a city that was completely shut down. I mean, Toronto was in lockdown until July. I mean, so the entire run of the production was in a place that was, really quiet. I mean, that did work to our advantage at times, because there were locations that we were able to utilize that were actually hungry. I mean, we paid the rent at a lot of locations that we utilized, and probably kept some businesses afloat because of, renting them for locations. So that was really good. And I think in terms of the crew, we were really, really dedicated to shooting no more than 10 hours. For the health and safety and living in a mask, it's really hard to be in a mask all day long. And we stayed very faithful to that. And I'm really proud of that, and I don't think we would change a thing. I would never go back. I mean, from that experience, COVID or no COVID, I will not advocate for any more than a 10-hour shoot day.
Yes, that's what you moving forward, right? With the strikes happening as well. Something to consider very strongly.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's gone on too long.
No, I think people have kind of gotten the wake-up call of, like, it's bullshit. And to what end? To what end?
I was thankful.
It's a long day. It's 10 hours is still a long day, because you have to come in and have your hair and makeup done. There's still, additional hours to the day.
But also our group was on, they were stranded. Like, because of the travel restrictions, people went to Toronto, you couldn't have your family visit you. I mean, unless you had brought your kids, let's say, with you if you had young kids. But you couldn't get a person coming in and out to visit you. You couldn't go home. There was a point where everybody in the States is getting vaccinated, and even though Toronto and Canada had done better during the pre-vaccination period, they were worse during the post period, and so people really had to give of themselves, but it also made for a very, very tight neighborhood.
That's all the time we have.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I'll stay here.
And then you guys will go to the next room
Okay.
for photos.
Okay.
We stay